I wish that the other Hateful Eight were here. I need my backup. I don't know. They just kind of told me. When I say I'm new to this, I've never really done a Comic-Con on my own. That hasn't been like with peeps, in the service of a movie. So apparently we don't have a moderator, which is, and to me, it's like that's kind of even better. So you guys talk. Yeah. Let's. So I don't really know how this goes. So they were just kind of giving me. I'm going to take my jacket off, just in case so we can talk. Whatever you guys want to talk about. What do we do with this? Oh, that's how it works. And that's what I need at home for my 5-year-old. Like, you got a question? Here you go. I'm just gonna want to hit someone in the head. There you go, pal. It's not on. All right, I'll talk really loud. Okay. All right. Is this on? That's on. Okay. Okay. Perfect. Hey, well, first and foremost, thank you very much for coming. I've never been to Kentucky, and yet I played a guy who lived in Kentucky for 6 years on television, right? No, but it's this state means a great deal to me, because Harlan County and the struggles of people in Harlan County mean a great deal to me. The struggles for people that live a more bucolic life mean a great deal to me. I'm from Georgia, and that was my experience growing up, and I couldn't come here when we did the screening of the finale of Justified because I was shooting the Hateful Eight. But so I've always wanted to come here, and just so you know, I've never done this before, like I said, and the only reason I did do it was because it was in Kentucky. So and I'm giving you like 10. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, man. Thanks. Yeah. And we're giving like 10% of anything that we make, or I am, to the Boys and Girls Club in Harlan. So thanks for coming out. Yeah. So let's talk.
Well, first of all, thanks for coming, obviously.
First off, you're talking into a brick microphone.
I love it. It's great.
I mean, that's just a little weird, but
I'm speaking to Walton Goggins through a brick. This is
phenomenal. Yeah, that's my wife says that through. You're like a brick wall. Okay.
Now you can take a picture and prove it. First of all, thank you for your accurate portrayal of kind of like that kind of people, that normal, everyday, working, not the glorified Hollywood version of Appalachia, but the actual. And that was what was so brilliant about the show, is what made it so real, and that was what was great. Second of all, Boyd Crowder's the best villain on TV, period, ever.
Thank you. Thanks, man. Thank you.
I mean, hands down, the absolute best. But my question is who won? At the end of Justified, who won? Did Ava win? Did Boyd win? Or did Raylan win?
Wow, that's a very good question. But do you write for the New York Times? You write. It's a great question.
I'll take a.
I think with any I think conflict in general, no one wins. Really. I mean, everybody loses and everybody wins. I suppose on a certain level, Ava won, but what did she win? I mean, she won her freedom. She won, outside of the struggle between these two guys and the person that she played in this contentious relationship. But she also lost a great love, and Boyd Crowder desperately loved her, and he was a man incapable of loving anything. And so she lost that, and Boyd, while he has his life, so on a number of levels, he won because he's still alive and breathing. But for him, the very thing that he was fighting for, consumed the very thing that he was fighting for. Do you know what I mean? Like the way that he kind of, his behavior ineffectually did not give him an opportunity to live the life that he wanted to live. And so he lost a great loss, and I suppose Raylan, in my opinion, Raylan won, not because he got Boyd Crowder. I think that's a loss, but he won because he was no longer the angriest man in the world, and he was able to kind of rise above that, and to say and to acknowledge that there's a great love in your life. And you had a friend, and that friend really meant something to you, and that relationship meant something to you. And a lot of people can go through their entire life never acknowledging that. You might feel it, but you don't have the words, or you refuse to say it. And he grew so much as a person, or grew to the point where he was able to say that. And so I think there is love and loss, and success and failure on both sides of all three of these people. That's awesome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Over there? Yeah. Whoa! Kentucky basketball.
1, 2, 3.
West Virginia, Kentucky basketball.
Thanks again for coming. I mean, I know it means a lot to everybody in this room, and really, this was the whole reason. We drove 5 hours to see you, and
thank you.
It really means a lot.
Thank you for saying that.
This may be a question that everybody knows the answer to, but I don't. Where did the Cletus Van Dam start? Like in the Shield, which turned into Venus Van Dam? Was that just like an inside joke on the set, or what was the?
Honestly, Shane Mandrell wasn't from the South. He was an LAPD police officer, and they just happened to like my personality outside of in between action and cut, and so they started messing with me really, and they made him from Atlanta, and then they made jokes at my expense or whatever, and then this one particular episode kind of came up, and I think Kurt Sutter wrote that episode. I'm not sure. But he just, in I think season 3 it was, or something like that, it just had him say Cletus Van Dam, because he was from Georgia, and that would be the only name he could kind of come up with, or so. Call me Cletus Van. And then when Sons of Anarchy, the tie that binds is obviously Kurt and myself, but he had done an interview, Kurt had, where he said, the only two people that I could never have on my show are Michael Chiklis and Walton Goggins, because people would think it's too much like The Shield. And someone sent me this article, and I wrote it, and forgive me if there are some small kids in the room. So I read this article, and I said, man, I wouldn't do your show anyway, mate. Like, I don't want to do your show. Only way I would do your show is if I played a transgender. And so a year later, true story. 1 year later, he texted me while I was doing Django, and he said, "Were you serious?" And I said, "About what?" And he said, "About playing a transgender." And I said, "Why do you have pages?" And he said, "Yeah." And he texted them over and emailed them over, and I read it, and I just fell in love with her, and I said, absolutely, and that her name was Venus Van Dam just made it all the sweeter. Yeah, it was great, and we just both really set out to we just wanted to honor and to not make fun of people in the transgender community, and to maybe expose an audience and Sons of Anarchy to someone that they may not live next to, that they may not see on a day-to-day basis, and just explore their humanity. And Sons of Anarchy is a hard world. A lot of these shows that are out, The Shield is a very, very hard world, and it was an opportunity to bring some grace and some dignity and an opportunity for the boys on SOA to grow, and to see the world from another person's point of view, and so we initially were only going to do one episode, but it was we both had such a good time doing it that we felt, okay, well, we've seen this side of her, but there's so much more to explore, and I just really wanted to keep wearing high heels. But thank you, man.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you so much. How would Boyd react if he were to find out he had a son?
I just like the way you said son. You know what? I think, without kind of getting emotional on this stage, all these, man, I don't play a character unless I really have a deep connection with them. And I think it would, because he's such a complicated guy, I think it would make and break his day simultaneously. I think it would, in some ways, I believe that he would get out, like he would endeavor to see his son face to face, because I don't think there's a world in which Ava would ever bring her son back to him. But I think that he would make that a goal, and it would be enough just to look into his eyes and say, I love you, and please don't do as I did,
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah.
So I'm actually from Harlan, Kentucky. Me and my friend grew up there.
Well, so am I. Really? There's a part of my schizophrenic personality that's from Harlan too.
So one of the things I loved about Justified, and especially Boyd's character, was he was always the smartest person in the room. And I guess I was just kind of wondering, when Raylan came to see him in prison in the final scene of the series, does Boyd know that Ava is still alive, or does he believe Raylan in thinking that Ava's dead?
No, I think he believes Raylan that he's dead. I think that there are a number of things that he wouldn't believe that would come out of Raylan's mouth, but when it's talking about the life or death of someone that he so desperately loves, that he just takes him at his word, and hopefully in that moment you were able to understand that Raylan told a lie. He told a great lie, but it was a necessary lie in order to protect Ava. And in some ways, to be quite honest with you, I think that he was protecting Boyd as much as he was protecting Ava, really. So no, he really believed him. And it's funny that you say that about intelligence. And we've had a couple of conversations with people that I talked to at the booth. That was very important to me. I'm from Georgia, and from at what would have been at the time a rural part of Georgia, even though it was only 18 miles from downtown. It was a really small town. And I grew up in an 1850s farmhouse, and I have met a lot of people from a lot of different economic strata in the South, and they're just some of the greatest storytellers that I've ever met. And people with money and people without money are also some of the smartest people I've ever met. And people in Hollywood so often profile people from the South as ignorant and backwards, or duplicitous. And that just wasn't my experience. And I played or racist, and I played a number of those characters when I first came to Hollywood, because that's what you do to make money. If you're Italian and you're from New York, you can bet you're going to play a mafioso. I mean, that's just what you do. If you're Arab, you're going to play a terrorist. That's how they pigeonhole you. But when I got to a place in my career where I could actually say no, or I had some real power and some real influence. In this case in particular, I said, listen, I'll only do this if I'm the smartest man in the room. And you understand that, like so many of my friends, we didn't have the opportunity to go to college. But what we did have is an opportunity to read and see the world from a literary point of view, based on the books that we read and how curious people from the South happen to be, and our own kind of struggles, and so I just I didn't want to play that guy anymore, because I didn't want to sell my culture out, and they just said absolutely, and so it was 6 years of kind of bringing that to the definition of people from the South, really. It's like, no, man, we're a lot more than that, a whole lot more than that. And it really kind of broadened that definition for people that that have never even come to the South, really. You know, they just kind of think about it one way, and so it's something that I'm very proud of, and something that I take very personally. So,
Thank you.
yeah, right over here, right here.
First off, like I said, thank you for talking to me earlier and letting me point out that there is no bridge on Tate's Creek Road.
Yeah, well, I said we got to build one. That's really why you're all here today. Let's start building a bridge on Tate's Creek Road.
But as many questions as you've had about Justified, I actually want to know about the character of Venus. She was such a pivotal character when it came to her role in Sons of Anarchy and everything. And I noticed in a Rolling Stone article that I read about you that you said that character in particular had changed you. How did you prepare for that role, and how did that change you as a person?
Well, at first I started walking in high heels in New Orleans. You know, I needed to kind of get that down, but I like with all great writing, it's either there or it's not there. You either have to work very hard, or you don't have to work that hard at all. So the way Kurt had written her, it just made sense to me. I think I just understood rather, what she could be. It was like a real springboard into her life. And I've met a lot of transgender people over the course of my life. And growing up in the South, I've met gay people that are marginalized, you know, because they're different, and I've heard their story. And so I understood that pain, and I also understood their great capacity for humor, and so that was really kind of where I started, and I suppose just seeing the world differently, you know, on a number of levels. I just go back to the scene that he has that I have with Tig, you know, when she is so regal and so dignified. And understands kind of the parameters of society that, listen, I love you, and I know that it's not even possible for you to love me, and I understand why, but I'm still going to tell you that I love you, and accept that love is not possible in the world, and it was such a revelation to me that, you know, people go through, you know, I mean, I don't know if you're black and you're white, you couldn't meet. I mean, it's because people would think things or think differently, and it's like we spend so much time pointing out our differences as opposed to just saying we really are all the same, man, and love transcends everything, and that's not a song. It's the fucking truth. You know, really, if you're injured or I mean, it's like there's so much of the conversation is diverted, and just for me, it was a real vehicle to see the world from such a marginalized place, you know, and so it really changed my life. You know, I mean, I don't know, for me, I mean, I remember when I showed up in Los Angeles. I mean, I was poor. I was poor, and I you know, I mean, I went to college. I had a Scholastic scholarship, and I walked away from it to move to Los Angeles. And I remember, you know, I came from, whether you're black or you're white, you're either on this side of the tracks or you're on that side of the tracks where I grew up. And I remember kind of walking into rooms with these people, like moving to Los Angeles, and the amount of insecurity that kind of comes with being raised that way, and like what it takes to just kind of put yourself in a very vulnerable place. And then to be judged by it, you know, to sit in a room, not based on your color, not based on anything other than your lack of access to education. And then you're judged on that level, you know, so the judging just kind of goes on and on and on and on. And for me, I remember kind of sitting in a conversation with people talking about Faulkner, talking about Southern writers, you know, and I just thought, you know, I'm never going to be in a situation where I don't have a literary reference or a way to contextualize this experience again. And since I didn't have the opportunity financially to go to school in that way, well, then I'm just going to travel. You know, I'm going to broaden my own horizons so that when I sit in a room with people that had it much easier than me, I'm gonna blow them away. I'm gonna be the most interesting person in the room, you know. And I set out to do that, you know, with travel. Like when I grew up, I remember thinking Hawaii was like India. You know, like it was, man, if I could just make it to Hawaii, so I've seen the world. You know, and then when I had the opportunity to go to Hawaii, I said, no, man, I'm not going there. You know, I'm gonna go to Cambodia. I'm gonna go to India. I just want to go and explore and see things, and so, you know, I think we've all. I mean, maybe you haven't, but I think we've all experienced, you know, those moments where it's like the extreme insecurity kind of comes in, and it's like, well, then how do you deal with that? You just, you know, either society will change or you just help change society, right? And you rise above it, and you set your own water level, I suppose. Damn, I didn't know this was going to turn into like, where's CNN? Where's Fox News? Over here. Hey, y'all. Right there. There we go.
I have an audition for a play, like 6 hours.
6 hours? What are you doing here? Let's do it. You gonna run it? No, go ahead. Cold read.
Any advice? I've never been cast to write the laugh right before the audition.
Yeah, you know what, man? I tell you what, like, it really kind of comes down to this. I don't even call myself an actor. I don't even like the word acting, to be quite honest with you. It's just a word that's convenient, you know, so that you can kind of talk about it. I consider myself a storyteller, you know, and I'm sure there's a lot of people in this room that can tell a good joke. You know, or tell about, you know, the story that happened something that happened during your day, the day to day, and you'll make a story out of it. So just come at it from a storyteller standpoint, and when you read it, if it's whatever insert situation here, just come at it from a storyteller standpoint or imaginary set of circumstances. You know, I've been asked to do a lot of negative things in my life. But you just turn yourself over to it and you allow yourself to believe it. You know, understand the words, read them 200-300 times, because they're just a springboard into the world that you can really live in, which is where you want to live in your imagination, and then just play, you know, from a child's point of view. I mean, there's no greater actors than a kid. I mean, I live with Laurence Olivier. He's 5 years old, you know, and just kind of throw off your ego, leave that at the door, and then just turn yourself over to an imaginary set of circumstances. Yeah, man. Mm-hmm.
Huge fan. Hateful Eight is a great movie. What was it like working with Quentin and all those guys?
Man, it was everything that you would want it to be. When I was doing Django, can I get some water, mate? Is there a bottle of water anywhere? You guys got one? Okay, thank you, man. There was one day in particular. Yeah, I think they're gonna bring one. You said, yeah, you got. I think they're walking in with a cold one. A beer is what I'm talking about. Yeah. Oh, thanks, man. Now we're talking. No, I remember. Yeah. Oh, it opens at 4. No, you know, he's an extraordinary man. You know, I don't know if you guys have ever met him or if you've ever been in a situation, a room with him, but his personality is just magnetic, and it's infectious. His enthusiasm for telling stories. So you know, you just kind of have that. And for me, he asked me to. We'd gone to a dinner, and he asked me to come and read for Django, and so, you know, I went in, and everybody was. Leonardo was there, you know, like everybody is already in the movie. Leo was cast, and Sam was cast, and Jamie and Christoph, and at the time, Billy Crash, the character that I played, was his name was Ace Woody. Actually, it was different in the script. And Kevin Costner was going to play it, and so I went in and he said, you know, so what do you want to do? And I just picked, like, you know, 3 or 4 characters, and I said, you know, let's start here, and we did it, and we started kind of playing, you know, we started having a really good time, got it up on its feet, and he just said, well, that was wonderful, that was fantastic. I said, oh, well, I'm not done. Oh, no. I'm going to read SLJ's character. I'm going to read Leonardo's character. And I'm going to read Christoph's character, not because I think you're going to recast Samuel L. Jackson with Walton Goggins, but because, I have the opportunity, man, and these are your words, and I may never get to say your words again. So for me, it wasn't about getting the job. It was about, I just want to say these words in front of the man that wrote it, and we had an amazing experience, and he invited me to come down and play. And I've known Leo for a long time. I've known some of these guys for a long time. But when we were on the set at the plantation, I remember there was one take in particular, and a bunch of my stuff got cut out of the movie because it's not called Billy Crash. It's called Django. But nevertheless, you have all of those experiences. And there was this one day that was kind of like Auschwitz, and it was between me and all my buddies who played the slaves and Leo's character, and everybody was there, and I'm sitting there and I've got my gun, I'm doing my stuff, and it's on me, it's a close up, and it's a big long kind of speech, and I look cool, I look so cool, and I turn around and there's Christoph Waltz, and Leonardo DiCaprio, Samuel L. Jackson, Jamie Foxx, and up on a ladder is Quentin Tarantino. And I just turned around and said, "Oh my God, I'm in a Quentin Tarantino movie!" Like, it just kind of hit me like in that. It's amazing. And everybody bust out laughing because they've all had that experience. He's and then Hateful Eight was just a whole nother level of we all became very, very, very close friends. And when you're in the service of, one of our great auteurs who happens to be as passionate as Quentin, you don't close your eyes because you don't want to miss anything. And it really is as special as you would think it is. He's right over here, and we'll go over here. Yeah.
First of all, also a huge fan. You created so many great characters. We have one. But have you ever thought about doing a comedy? Because clearly you got.
Thank you, man. It's coming on HBO. It's called Vice Principals with Danny McBride, who did Eastbound and Down. Yeah, I have. I just need to get away from, needing to see a therapist every day I left work. So hard. It was just like, God, really? I got to hurt somebody again today? I got to do next. But we did it. It's called Vice Principals, and it's these two vice principals that are vying for the principal job. It's that simple, and it's also very complex. But I happen to think it's very, very funny and very dark. And so we did 18 episodes, and it comes on in July. It starts in July. We just had the premiere at South by Southwest 2 nights ago. I came straight here from there. Yeah, so it's a good one. It's a good one. Yeah, me too.
Yeah, just jumping back to Hateful Eight real quick. I think your character had the most developed arc in that movie, and
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you first, ask you about what drew you to that character, and
About what now?
what drew you to the role of the character, and what you thought the movie is about.
Well, what drew me to that character is Quentin Tarantino saying, "You want to be in my movie?" I don't care if I'm just bringing water on a stage. Yes, and I'll say yes. When the man calls, there's only one. We got to the point where we were joking on set, and I said, "Listen, as soon as he calls, I just say yes, yep, yes." He's like, "I'm just asking you if I could borrow a couple mil." Yes, you can do that too. Whatever he asks, I think from the people that he asks it from, just jump at it, But for me, the movie is just about so many things, It's such a romp, and it's very theatrical, and it's very funny, and it captures kind of the anger of the country and kind of where we were during Reconstruction after the Civil War, and and yet it's a mystery. It's all of these things. But for me, from my point of view, the first thing that I was at his house and I was reading the script, and afterwards he walked out and he said, "So?" And I said, "Well, I just have one question for you, mate." I said, "Am I or am I not the sheriff of Red Rock?" And he said, "That's for you to decide, and I don't want to know the answer to your question." And so that really just was a springboard for me into this experience, and I just looked at Chris Mannix really as a person who was in an arrested state of development. Just someone who was regurgitating a worldview that was dictated by his father. He's not a person who really had any experiences outside of where he grew up. And for me, over the course of that movie, he becomes a man, able to think for himself. And it was a great, moral tale for me as an actor playing Chris Mannix. It was, whether you can change the hearts and minds of an entire group of people, I don't know. But you can change the heart and mind of one person. And that's really kind of what that experience was like for Mannix and for Major Warren on that bed together at the very end of the movie. It was very very cathartic and a very special experience.
I've got the box over here,
Yeah.
the little brick.
Brick box.
First of all, thanks for coming to Lexington, and
Thank
thanks
you
for
for
coming
having
here, man.
me.
And I will say this, like, when I first started seeing you pop up in movies, I would just be like, wow, I was gravitating towards your character. So
Shoot, thank you,
whatever
man.
I've seen you in, you somehow make it iconic in some way, even if it's a background character. And
Look at that. See, now I need another agent.
Hey.
Thank you, man.
Which,
No, thanks, man. Thank you.
And, Boyd Crowder, man, I can't say enough about, but the way you just brought together wiliness and ruthlessness and fun. Like, you made it fun. Yeah, that's my favorite part of watching the show. It's like, yeah, Raylan's great. Okay, where's Boyd?
Thanks, man.
And so I really did appreciate that. Now, I'm shaking a little bit because I'm trying to get up enough guts to ask you a question. I'm a film composer, teacher, educator, and all that stuff for years, and
Wow.
I have family in Harlan, friends in Leslie County, all down in that area.
Yeah.
I'm from Kentucky. I grew up in rural Kentucky, moved to Lexington.
Yeah.
And I know this is a big if, and you probably say, well, I'll let you speak for yourself. If there was a film that was going to happen that was in talks with Netflix about that area to be filmed in that area, and it's pretty good, would you be interested in entertaining the idea of one of those roles?
Oh, well, absolutely.
And how to go about getting.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, absolutely. It's for me. It's I don't want to. First and foremost, I'll tell you one of the greatest things for an economy is having movies come to your state. Like, and I'm not really even sure what the.
We've got tax incentives here.
You have tax incentives.
35% back.
How much are they?
35.
They're at 35% in the state of Kentucky.
Yes. In
And how
certain
long have
areas.
they been that way?
A few years now.
A few years. So movies are starting to come here now, right?
Yep.
Well, then I mean, I'm sure there's some great people that put this facility on. You need to get the word out. Really, you need to get the word out because it's first and foremost for the most of the people that kind of come with movies and crews. They're interesting people. They're really interesting people with interesting points of view and the actors more often than not. I mean, you get a bad apple every now and then, but for the most part, they're really cool and it's a way to boost your local infrastructure for storytelling. They're really good jobs. They're really high-paying jobs, and it's an opportunity for like artistic expression to blossom in your state. So I didn't know that. I mean, that's extraordinary, mate. I mean, New Orleans has that. Atlanta has that. North Carolina just did away with it.
Yeah.
And South Carolina just is working on theirs. So absolutely, man. I just go with material, and I try not to repeat myself that often.
I guess.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is, would you be interested in hearing more about it, and what is the best way to do that in a appropriate way?
Yeah, I think with because I've gone through that. I've tried to answer that question for myself with different things that I've put together over the years, and there's IMDb Pro, and it is literally, it has every contact of every single actor and writer
Right.
and DP that you would ever want to get in touch with.
So agent is
Yeah.
the best way.
Yeah, agent, that manager's there, publicist is there, everything is there. I've found that's a great tool that I use to I was putting together a movie last year and needed to kind of reach out to Guy Pearce. I don't know Guy, but I just used that tool. It's like, okay, so what's going on? Da, 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 da. Yeah. And
Well,
then they call.
I'll let somebody else talk, but I'll just say this, that as I was writing the script, you were acting in my head.
Oh, thank you, man.
So.
Well, then where are my residuals? If I've,
Yeah.
I've already been acting in your head. I'm just kidding.
It's all still in my head.
I'm just kidding. Right here and then right here back here. Okay. You
Right here.
you go with the brick.
So we have to pick it up on
Kentucky basketball.
No, I'm too short for that. So, anyway, been a big fan ever since you were in Shanghai Noon and buried Owen Wilson in the desert. I was
Thank
like,
you.
this guy's cool.
Thank you.
And so, my whole family got into watching Justified and everything else. And this was one of the best parts of my spring break, was getting to come down here and talk to you. So, my question is, out of the 3 series you've done for FX, you have any favorite little on-set stories, memories, stuff like that?
God, there is it too many really to say right now. When I was doing Venus, this is a funny story. I think it's appropriate for age. I think it's okay. Yeah. No, I don't feel like I ever did Sons of Anarchy really, because I never, and I know those guys. I've hung out with those guys at a lot of different things for FX, and but they never came into the makeup room. But really, for the most part, I never saw them as Walton. I only saw them as Venus. I only spoke to them as Venus. I never talked about anything that we had in common, and that's how I wanted to approach it, and that they were very, very, very respectful of that. And so, literally, from the moment I kind of walked on, they were like in awe of her, not of me, but of her, and she was very, very sexy to them, and they didn't use any profanity around me, they opened the door for me, they held my hand walking down the street, like walking downstairs, they brought chairs over, so they were extremely respectful of me, and not crass in any way. They treated me like a lady. But I know they wanted it. They just wanted what I had, but yeah, they weren't gonna ask. No one was gonna ask, and they were friends, and we never talked about it. Like, I would walk out of the makeup chair and I was Walton again, we never just talked about it ever, And so then this went on for a couple of years or whatever, and then there was one day in particular that they were all kind of still there, and we had like finished like a scene, and it was kind of a big kind of emotional scene, and I was done for the season or whatever, and we were there, and all the guys were there, and they were being very respectful, and da 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 da, and then it crescendoed at the end of this scene. And then I looked at them, and I was just, hugging them, and they were just hugging very respectfully. And I just said, "Okay, boys, you really want it? You can have a feel." And they all jumped up and did their thing, And it was really, it was special, and we all laughed about it. But, so they got to do what, yeah. Right over here.
So, love your performance in Sons of Anarchy. Absolutely fantastic.
Thanks, man.
Very dynamic character throughout the course of the show, even though she's not over amount. What do you think becomes of Venus after the final credits roll? What's the future hold for her?
Oh man, that's a great question. we all as actors kind of answer that question for ourselves, you know. I think that she is on the cusp of a society that is more willing to accept her. And I think she probably opens a fashion business. You know, I think or she becomes a reality talk show host. You know, I think that that she kind of moves into some way of communicating with people, because I think she really likes people, and I think that she is a joy to be around. So I think that her load becomes much lighter after SOA. Yeah. Yeah. I was able to. I've been on the road really for about 14 months, and I took my family on a trip last year, and I came back and I was able to do this one movie up in Canada relatively quickly, and then we started Justified, and then from Justified we were simultaneously rehearsing the Hateful Eight, so I was working 7 days a week for about 4 months, and then filming kind of back and forth through March, and then as soon as March hit, or March 15th, I got on a plane and went straight to Charleston, and we didn't finish Vice Principals until November the 15th, and then I went on the road, you know, promoting the Hateful Eight until really January the 8th. So I just want to be with my family, man. I really took some time, even though they were with me on the road quite a bit. So I really kind of took some time down. But then I met a lot of these, you know, a lot of really wonderful actors over the course of these last 2 or 3 months. Some people that I didn't know, and somebody said, don't wait too long to say yes. You know, don't sit out. So I did. I've said yes to a couple things that I'm really excited about, but I'm not at liberty to say. Yeah, but I'm going to take off in April to go do a movie, and then one in May, and then just kind of reading stuff now. Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks. Make it a good one. Okay. Hey, man.
We've heard a lot about Boyd, which is a great character, but we haven't heard a lot about Shane.
Yeah.
Which I think is one of the greatest characters I've ever seen. So,
thanks, man.
If you had to pick between Shane and Boyd, which would be your favorite and why?
You know what? I couldn't even answer that question, honestly. They're so mystical, and they both kind of stand side by side, you know. And so does Venus. So Chris Mannix. I've gotten to play some really interesting role. This role in a movie called Mojave, even though a lot of it was kind of cut because of time, but it was just this lawyer named Jim, and he was a little like Jack Nicholson, and he just kind of moves through this space with a glass of whiskey in his hand the whole time, and is inebriated during all the negotiations. You know, he was awesome. You know, I've got to play some really great roles, but the one thing I will say is, you know, Shane was my first really serialized experience as an actor, and you know, you got the chance to really explore the mind of someone over the course of 84 episodes, 84 hours of television. So I was able to really deeply understand him. So he's very, very special to me, and so much so that I didn't know what was going to happen, and none of us knew what was going to happen, and I didn't even know to ask for this, you know. It wasn't really up to me anyway. But I was so grateful that Shane, that it ended the way that it ended for him, because it would have just been too painful for me, I think, thinking about him in the world, you know, like what he was doing today. I would still be consumed with like, what's that motherfucker doing? What's he doing today? Like, and it's, I mean, I really wanted Boyd to die. You know, I really, really pushed for Boyd to die for 3 years. And they didn't, you know. Maybe something else will come from it. I don't know. Maybe maybe because they want to do something else. But yeah, it was. They're both mean a lot, man. I can't thank you. This is wonderful. There's something about, like, you know, Stan. Thank you. You know, there's something about standing in a booth and like getting like an individual conversation, but I quite enjoy, I enjoy talking to people anyway, and I've had great conversations with people in whatever cities I've happened to be working in, but to be here and to have this kind of public forum in this way, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much.
Right, guys, let's send them off right. Come on, let's hear it for Walton Goggins.